the kindergarten where our daughter was caught on fire. My husband, Chris, rushed in without hesitation, but came out holding a stranger's little girl, Tina's dad. Did you get the wrong child? This is not your daughter. But my husband just held the little girl tightly, his eyes red with tears. In a flash, the face of my husband's first love crossed my mind. Later, our daughter was finally rescued by the firefighters. Her body was already charred and she had stopped breathing. Chapter 1. The hall was filled with the sound of sobbing. In the center was a photo of my daughter. Aw, it's such a pity, the child was only 5. And now, stop talking. I knew that everyone at this moment wanted to scrutinize my expression, to see how a mother like me was dealing with the devastating blow of losing her daughter. I heard the child was burned beyond recognition. How painful it must have been when she died. Every word felt like a sharp knife, stabbing into my chest. I thought I had no more tears left, but hearing these words, my eyes blurred completely, and I struggled to stand upright. As for Chris, he knelt beside me, staring at our daughter's photo, his face devoid of expression, even more indifferent than the outsiders. I overheard someone whispering behind me, Chris never liked Dolores. Now that the child is gone, I think this high-profile marriage is over. Yeah. Dolores brought this on herself. She insisted on pursuing Chris to Mexico and then threatened him with the company. How can a forced marriage be happy? Chris and Flora were meant to be together. Now that the only child is gone, Chris will definitely divorce her. But the child was so young. You don't understand. For these powerful family marriages, the child is just a bridge to maintain the relationship. Now that the child is gone, Chris will definitely go back to his true love. Tears fell as I forced a smile. Yes. Back in college, Chris and Flora were in the spotlight. Although Flora's family was not wealthy, she was excellent in her studies and sweet in appearance, making her relationship with Chris sensational. Later, Chris was arranged by his family to go abroad, and Flora was warned by the Wynn family to stay in the country. I pursued Chris overseas and forced him into marriage with the promise of a family alliance. Everyone knew Chris loathed our marriage to the extreme. After our wedding, except for our wedding night, Chris was rarely around. I had to get information about him from Flora. At first, I was indignant and confronted Flora, but it was Chris who opened the door, looking down at me with an emotionless face. The marriage is done, and the Liu and Shen families are benefiting the most. What more do you want? Can you leave Ruji alone? After that, I never went back. In this unbalanced and dysfunctional family, our daughter became an insecure child. She was young, but she could instantly sense who genuinely loved her. Despite her longing for fatherly love, she never dared to approach Chris, always watching him with cautious and fearful eyes. But Flora's daughter easily received the fatherly affection from Chris. Chris's love for Flora became clear to me when I saw him rush out of the fire carrying her daughter. After so many years, Chris hadn't changed at all. He loved Flora from the beginning to the end, even if it meant losing his own flesh and blood. I suddenly felt exhausted, unable to utter a single word of reproach. It was as if a small knife repeatedly cut open my heart, the pain spreading through my nerves to my entire body. My fingers trembling, my eyes filled with tears, looking at my daughter's photo. Her small, soft image seemed to reappear before my eyes. My breath caught. My vision went black, and I collapsed to the ground. In a blur, I saw Chris's indifferent gaze turn towards me. Chapter 2. When I woke up again, I was surrounded by people. Everyone looked at me with concern, but in truth, there were many faces I didn't even recognize. Most of them were supporters from the Wen and Sui families. In the past, I would have found such superficial concern laughable and disdainful, but seeing Chris's emotionless eyes, I even thought that sometimes. It's nice when people at least pretend to care. I propped myself up and smiled. I'm fine. No need to worry. Chris's father and my parents were sitting together, their eyes filled with overflowing anxiety and sorrow. Later, only Chris and I were left in the room. Chris, have you ever felt any regret or guilt, thinking that if you had held our daughter instead? Chris looked up and tugged at his tie. Flora's daughter was closer to me. In that situation, I had to choose the safest option. I smiled. Is that so? Looks like you didn't have any selfish motives. I must have misunderstood you. sensing the implication in my words. Chris's expression turned ugly. Dolores, the most important thing for you now is to make proper arrangements for Tina's funeral, not to dwell on these useless, unfounded thoughts. My phone chimed. I glanced at it. It was a photo of a girl smiling brightly. Flora had sent it. The girl in the picture was Flora's daughter. And in the photo, holding the girl with a radiant smile, was Chris. Pain and suffocation entwined me like vines. My hand clenched suddenly. Her daughter survived, while my daughter perished in that sea of fire. Her life ended at the age of 5, and in her last moments, she saw her father carrying another girl to safety. Her hands, reaching out for help, were burned by the flames. What kind of despair and fear did she feel? Chris, Flora's daughter needs you too, right? You don't need to stay here with me, wasting your time. Chris frowned. Dolores, I've told you many times not to drag Ruji into our issues. Can't you speak properly? I pulled the blanket over myself, turning away from him. I am speaking properly. Please leave. I want to rest. I once longed for Chris's glance and words of comfort. Now, even though he sat by my bedside, I felt nothing but suffocation. Chapter 3. After Tina's funeral was handled, Chris's good friend Mateo came to see me. When I was with Chris, Mateo never liked me. Unlike his friendly demeanor with others, he always avoided me. Where I was, he wasn't. And where he was, I wasn't. But Tina was particularly fond of him after she was born, and Mateo was more patient with her than Chris ever was. Now that he came, it was likely to question me, and I didn't want to face him. If you have something to say, just say it. If it's to blame me, I don't want to hear it, and I don't need to. Mateo's eyes flickered. I'm not here to kick you when you're down. Tina was innocent. My dislike for you doesn't mean I'd hurt you this way. I know Chris didn't save our child. If anyone is to blame, it should be him, the father. I sat on the couch, turning my head to look out the window. Ever since Tina's death, hearing Chris's name made me feel suffocated with a heavy sense of powerlessness. All my past persistence for Chris had now become a joke, each memory silently mocking me. I just wanted to check how Tina's mother is doing. Mateo said softly. I looked up to meet his gaze. He added, also, as a concerned friend of Chris. I let out a laugh. Since that day, I hadn't seen Chris again, and now, it was his friend expressing concern on his behalf. No need. We're getting divorced. What's the point of holding on to such a marriage? I once thought that having a child would make Chris focus on our family. My daughter never felt the fatherly love others had. Now Tina is gone, and the pain of losing her made me fully realize how absurd this marriage was. A marriage that should have been supported by love lost its only son, leaving only a cold, collapsing ruin. Mateo's expression froze for a moment. Just then, the door opened. Chris's usually cold face showed a rare emotional shift. You want a divorce? He frowned. Who allowed you to make such a decision? Mateo and Chris exchanged glances. Chris's frown deepened, but he said nothing more and looked directly at me. If you get divorced, what happens to the alliance between the Liu and Su families? Isn't that what you wanted? Now you're saying you don't want it anymore? Interests? I never cared about those. Chris then answered his phone, speaking softly. Hold on. I need to get a document. You take Maddie around, and I'll pick you up later. While he spoke, his indifferent gaze remained on me. Maddie, Flora's daughter, is named Madeline. I forced a smile. Chris took the document and left, saying, Stop saying things you haven't thought through. Not thought through? Tina's death brought me a clear realization. Chris, all these years, I was wrong. Completely wrong. From now on, I won't cling to this anymore. Chapter 4. When Mateo left, he handed me a business card. I suggest you go see a doctor. Your current state is very concerning. Don't ignore mental health issues. This is a friend of mine, a reputable doctor. If you need, just give him a call. If it's inconvenient, you can call me too. I just want to look out for you for Tina's sake. Don't overthink it. I nodded and accepted the card. I majored in biology and minored in psychology in college, so how could I not recognize my own issues? I understand. Thank you. I couldn't save myself. Even attempting to save myself was excruciatingly painful. Since being with Chris, my depression and anxiety had worsened. A woman who places all her focus on her family derives most of her joy and pain from it too. The joy my daughter brought balanced me, allowing me to ignore the feelings of neglect and criticism. She often jumped into my arms, pleading cutely, "Mommy, I don't want to go to school," or she would hug me with her little arms, smiling, "Mommy, I missed you so much." But now that my daughter is gone, all I have left is a heart covered in dust, devoid of any hope. Chapter 5. After that, my best friend often stayed by my side. "Oh, come on. Stop looking at your phone and chat with me, will you?" My best friend Alina hugged my arm and snatched my phone, hiding it behind her. I smiled softly. I just wanted to look at Tina's photos. Alina's smile froze for a moment. She lowered her eyes and then hugged me tightly. "Dolly, Tina wouldn't want to see you like this. Life will get better. Don't make her sad." After seeing Alina off, I picked up my phone again. I knew there was probably some news I shouldn't see. It would likely be about the so-called scandals of the wealthy, exposing the death of an heiress, accompanied by comments from netizens piling on. As I scrolled through my daughter's photos, a headline from an entertainment news alert caught my eye. Hashtag heiress's death, when heir reunites with first love hashtag. Hashtag heiress's death, when heir finds new love hashtag. The accompanying picture showed two figures walking side by side, very close. Flora's hand was clutching Chris's sleeve, her head tilted up, looking at him. I had expected that Chris would go back to Flora after our child was gone, but I didn't expect it to be so soon. While the media was extensively reporting my daughter's death, he could still reunite and fall in love with someone else. The bracelet on Flora's wrist gleamed warmly in the sunlight. I had seen it in Chris's study before. It was in a blue velvet gift box, prominently displayed on the desk. I had picked it up with a smile, only to be scolded by Chris. "Who said you could touch my things? Dolores, how many times do I have to tell you why I married you? Don't you have anything else to do?" I closed the box and left the study without a word. So it was for Flora. I remembered when I first fell for Chris in college. I always liked to show my sincerity with money, almost obsessively pursuing Chris, high profile and flamboyant, always following him around. Back then, no one knew I was the heiress of the Sway family. Everyone just saw me as another wealthy suitor of Chris. I often tugged on his sleeve. "Chris, do you have plans for lunch? Let's eat together. My treat. Do your friends want to join?" I smiled at him. Chris would knock on my head. "Are you rich or something? Treating everyone like this?" I'd curl my lips. "If I run out of money, can you cover me?" At that time, I thought Chris genuinely liked me, so I let my feelings grow wildly. Disregarding any rumors about Flora, I arrogantly didn't see any girl around him as a threat. Later, Chris's attitude toward me became more impatient and cold. "Dolores, you should spend more time on yourself. After all, you'll have to take over your family's company someday, right?" When a reporter exposed my identity, it caused quite a stir at school. I never thought Chris would use it as an excuse to avoid me. I smiled stiffly. "Take over what? Are you angry?" "I should have told you, but I was afraid it would create a distance between us." He coldly interrupted. "I don't care about that. What I mean is, don't follow me around anymore." As I was about to follow him, Flora linked her arm through his. Flora naturally clung to Chris. With her academic excellence, looks, and gentle demeanor, they truly matched. "See, I told you. Flora is the one. Dolores is too strong-willed for Chris." "Yeah, Flora and Chris have known each other for a long time, right? They're a great match. Dolores is too high and mighty. She's not suitable for someone like Chris from an ordinary background." I really thought it was my family that made Chris feel pressured. I explained myself endlessly, tried to please him in countless ways, but he remained cold towards me, until just before graduation. I met Chris at an auction within our social circle and realized he was actually quite wealthy. I never gave up on pursuing him. When I heard he and Flora would be separated, with him going to Mexico to study, I naturally pursued him relentlessly. I believed my sincerity could win his heart, or at least, Time would make him love me. In the end, I forced him into marriage with the lure of family benefits. Now, I should understand. Some things don't have a result just because you persist. My daughter's death woke me up. I picked up the phone and dialed. Lawyer White. Please draft a divorce agreement. Chapter 6. I moved out of the Wynn family home, taking all of my daughter's belongings with me. Just as I was about to leave, I ran into Chris. He was holding some documents and angrily grabbed my hand, slamming the door shut. Chris loosened his tie forcefully, looking down at me with a commanding gaze. He threw the documents on the table. What is this? Divorce? I held my suitcase and looked up at him, expressionless, with a slight smile. Yes, let's divorce. Chris, all these years, I've wronged you, keeping you tied to me because of what happened back then, but I have been punished too. I have lost my daughter. Chris's jaw tightened. He spoke in a cold tone. Is this another one of your tricks? Dolores? Are you trying to make me change my mind by retreating? Mentioning the past. Chris clenched his fist. Do you think an apology can erase what happened back then? I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, I don't want to hear it. I don't agree to the divorce. And you need to calm down. Stop bringing me these ridiculous agreements. Tears started falling from my eyes in large drops. Even I was surprised. Not knowing where these emotions were coming from, I suppressed the suffocating feeling in my chest. Speaking slowly, I've stubbornly clung to you all this time. Chris, I've realized my mistake. I'm letting you go. You can be with Flora. I will take the blame upon myself, so no one will stand in your way. Is that okay? Chris stared at me for a long time. After a prolonged silence, he seemed to smile. Dolores, I'll ask you one last time. Do you really want a divorce? I nodded without hesitation. Fine, divorce it is. I gave you a chance, Dolores. If you ever come back to me, I'll only look down on you. With sharp strokes, he signed the divorce papers and walked away. Chapter 7. Flora came to see me. She brought her daughter and carried a fruit basket. Dolores. Long time no see. Indeed, it had been a long time since I went to Mexico with Chris. I hadn't seen Flora. Back then, when I heard people say that Chris liked Flora, I had gone to confront her. Flora, are you dating Chris? Flora smiled at me. I'm not comfortable answering that. Sorry, I smiled. Then I'll assume there's nothing between you two. Flora's expression stiffened. She forced a smile. Miss Sue can think that way, but others might not. Besides, you've been pursuing aging for so long. If there was a chance for you two, wouldn't it have happened by now? If he really liked you, why would he let the rumors about us persist? I pretended not to catch Flora's insinuation. It doesn't matter. As long as you're not together, I still have a chance. Looking back, I remembered my arrogance and confidence back then. Now, it felt like a joke. Flora seemed to have shed her previously thin and frail appearance. Now, she looked radiant and well-nourished, like a well-tended indoor flower. All these years, even after marrying me, Chris hadn't stopped caring for her. I had been thoroughly wrong. Dolores, I mean no harm. I came to advise you. I looked at her daughter's innocent face and felt a sharp pain. If my Tina were alive, she would be just as sweet and lovely. Just say what you want to say. Flora. Flora tucked her hair behind her ear. I know losing your child is painful, but Chris is suffering too. You kept him by your side for so many years. It's time to let him go. She stroked her daughter's head, almost as if provoking me. Don't you get it? The one who survived is my daughter, who has no blood relation to him. Flora's words stabbed my heart like a knife. Let us be, Dolores. He never loved you, and now you've lost your only bargaining chip. Why humiliate yourself? I coldly replied. My child was never a bargaining chip. If you keep mentioning my daughter, I won't mind throwing you out. Flora's face changed color. Also, if you and Chris are so in love, why did you come here to ask me to leave? Flora clenched her fists, her face paling. But I won't delve into that. Chris and I will divorce soon. The papers are signed. You don't need to come to see me again. A smile finally appeared on her face. Watching Flora's departing figure, I let out a heavy sigh. I used to look down on her, But now, I felt like a clown in front of her. After all these years of fighting for Chris's love, I had to lose my daughter to realize how foolish it was to hold on to an impossible love. Chapter 8. After signing the divorce agreement with Chris, I immediately went abroad. I decided to settle down overseas. Coming with me was Mateo. I leaned against the railing, smoking heavily. The swirling smoke and the pain of coughing helped me forget my anguish. Why do you insist on following me? If you hate me, just say it directly. I don't have the strength to deal with you. Just leave me alone. Mateo looked at me quietly. He didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he seemed to murmur, "You know you're not okay, right? Why don't you see a doctor? Why did you leave your uncle and aunt and come here alone? What are you trying to do?" I smiled slightly. "What? Are you afraid I'll commit suicide?" Mateo's eyes filled with complex emotions, as if my words had touched a nerve. "Isn't that the case? Dolores, are you going to cling to this for the rest of your life? Is not having Chris's love going to destroy you? Have you forgotten how confident and spirited you used to be? Are you going to spend your whole life stuck on the love of one man, on a family that's long been broken? Family, but in that family, where is my daughter? If I don't hold on, who else will remember my daughter?" I looked down and tiredly smoked. "Mateo, do you like me?" He stiffened, his jaw tight. Before he could answer, I continued, "When did you start liking me? In college? Or after the marriage? Do you think that now that I've been abandoned, laughed at by everyone in the circle, and lost my child, you can easily be the savior and be with me? That thought just makes me feel sick." These harsh words would certainly make the proud and vain Mateo leave. However, instead of hearing footsteps, I heard Mateo's clear, resigned voice. "I do like you, but I didn't know you were unhappy in your marriage. It was Tina. She said she hoped I could be her dad. That she rarely saw Chris at home but saw him picking up other kids at the kindergarten. Chris seldom came home, and your smile became less frequent." I was stunned. Tina, my daughter was so young. I never thought she would connect my happiness with Chris. I always told her, "Tina misses Daddy? Daddy will be back in a few days. Daddy is just on a business trip." How could he not like Tina? "Daddy will take us to the amusement park, and we'll invite Tina's friends, okay?" My daughter would always hug my waist, leaning on me with utter dependence, softly saying, "Okay." Was such a young child comforting me? I covered my mouth with a trembling hand, tears instantly blurring my vision. "Tina." I collapsed to the ground, the pain I had briefly forgotten overwhelming me. The river water sparkled before me, but my mind was filled with my daughter's delicate face. The breeze and air seemed to turn into tiny knives, intensifying my agony. I broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, pounding my chest in despair. "My daughter, my Tina. Mommy is so sorry." Mateo held me in his arms, grasping my hands. "Hit me, Dolores. Don't cry, don't cry." Chapter 9. After returning home, while rummaging through my daughter's things, I accidentally found a letter I had written to Chris. Back then, when I was pursuing him, I tried every method and approach. I never did anything outrageous. I was always sincere and genuine. The letter had many pages, filled with my feelings for him. But later, the letter was returned to me, untouched. It was Flora who handed it to me. "Sorry, Dolores. Chris asked me to handle some trash for him, and when I saw your name on it, I thought I'd bring it to you." Prideful as I was, I couldn't stand Flora's mocking gaze. I grabbed the envelope and threw it into the trash can. "No need. If he doesn't like it, just throw it away." After she left, I cried for a long time alone, then sobbingly retrieved it from the trash can. I kept it until now, never opening it again. Reflecting on my past foolishness is a way to wake up, I suppose. I opened the envelope and read it all the way to the end, where I had written my closing line. "So, Chris, can I stay by your side?" I scoffed and was about to throw it away when I noticed familiar handwriting on the back of the last page. It was Chris's handwriting. It read, "Dolores, I will never like you. Don't hurt yourself. There's no need to waste your time on me." If I had seen that back then, would I have hesitated for a moment? Would it have prevented my current fate? I decided not to dwell on it. I took out my daughter's clothes and toys and placed them beside me. I couldn't find her favorite music box, likely left at the Wen's house. I was about to call Chris. Suddenly, a message popped up on WeChat. It was from Flora. In the photo, Flora's daughter and Chris were sitting face to face. Chris was smiling, and the girl was holding Tina's music box while Chris gently patted her head. Feeling a lump in my chest, I dialed Chris's number. Chris's clear voice came through the phone. I told you, Dolores. I'll only look down on you if you're trying to get back together with me. I interrupted Chris. Give me back my daughter's music box. What music box? The music box Flora's daughter is holding. Chris paused. It's just a music box. You took so many of Tina's things. This child likes it, so I let her play with it. I took a deep breath. That's my daughter's thing. Chris, you can't just give it away. You don't have the right. Fine. If you want it, come get it yourself. Chapter 10. I bought a ticket to return to the country the next day. Mateo insisted on coming with me. I felt irritated. Mateo, do you like me? I asked maliciously. When did you start liking me? In college. Or after the marriage? Do you think that now? Having been abandoned, laughed at by everyone in our circle, and having lost my child, you can easily be the savior. Seeing Mateo's increasingly strange expression, I froze. My mind was in turmoil, images replaying before my eyes. These words, I seemed to have said them exactly the same way before. Mateo grabbed my arm, his eyes overflowing with concern. Dolores. My fingertips trembled uncontrollably, but I couldn't remember when it had happened. I desperately tried to recall, but the fragments vanished, leaving a blank space. Tears slid down my cheeks, and Mateo held me tightly in his arms. We're going to the hospital. We're going now. Chapter 11. Dissociative amnesia and severe depression. I stared at the diagnosis slip for a long time. I tried to curl my lips into a mocking smile, but it felt as if I had no strength left. Mateo held my hand tightly, more anxious than I was. We'll get treatment, okay? Let's do it for Tina. A flicker of light appeared in my eyes as I recalled the times Mateo came to take Tina out to play. Uncle, can we ask Mommy to come with us? I want the three of us to go out and play. Mateo would usually glance at me without any emotion and then gently pinch Tina's cheek. Your mommy doesn't really want to go out. Uncle will take you, and we'll have even more fun, okay? Back then, I never delved into Mateo's gaze. Now that I think about it, it seemed the same as before. His eyes always carried a hint of probing, nervousness, and gentleness. I nodded. Okay. Chapter 12. Dissociative amnesia was worse than I thought. That day, it was raining. Mateo and I were out for a walk. The light drizzle turned into a downpour, and we took shelter under a pavilion. In a daze, I suddenly remembered something and grabbed Mateo's hand. It's all your fault. You insisted on taking me out, and I forgot to pick up Tina. Mateo's expression froze, his eyes trembling for a moment. Dolores, where are you going to pick up Tina? I frowned and shook him off. What do you mean where? I brought Tina to Germany to play, and left her with the Smiths. Don't you remember? Mateo tightly gripped my hand, his face contorted with pain. Dolores, you're sick. Tina is gone. What are you talking about? Mateo, you're the one who's sick. A car sped by. A black-haired girl came into my view. Her eyes darted around in panic. She held a beautiful doll in her arms, standing in the middle of the road. Paralyzed with fear, the car drew closer and closer. The girl's face overlapped with the image of Tina in my mind. My heart tightened, and I rushed toward the girl. Tina! The car brushed past my arm, leaving a bloody wound on my elbow. The girl screamed and cried, and I finally saw her face clearly. She had an Asian face, but she wasn't Tina. The girl was quickly taken away by her parents. Mateo knelt beside me, his suit soaked through, his hair dripping wet. He held me tightly in his arms. His voice seemed to break. Dolly, Dolly. Leaning against Mateo, I felt exhausted. Placing my hand on his arm, I remember now. Tina is gone. Chapter 13. When I woke up again, I was lying in a hospital bed. I frowned and rubbed my forehead. I felt sore all over. The room was empty, but I could hear arguing outside the door. I threw back the covers, stood up, and walked closer. A familiar voice reached me. Mateo. What do you mean? Do I need your permission to see Dolores? You're divorced now. You have no relationship with her anymore. I'm still her ex-husband, someone who lived with her for many years. The man's voice was low and angry. Step aside. I don't want to argue about your relationship. I just need to know why she's in the hospital and how she's doing. Chris, you're marrying Flora, right? Do you think she wants to see you now? My affairs with anyone are none of your business. Mateo, if you insist on blocking me, I need to ask, how long have you been coveting Dolores? There was a loud bang. Someone probably got hit. I gently pushed the door open and saw the two men grappling with each other. They both froze, turning to look at me simultaneously, then awkwardly let go of each other and straightened their clothes. I noticed a bruise on Mateo's lip and reached for his sleeve. Frowning, did you get hit? Mateo pressed his lips together and nodded. The man opposite, called Chris, was staring at me intently. I looked at him curiously and then asked Mateo, "Who's this?" Chris froze completely, his emotions suddenly surging. He grabbed my hand, almost laughing angrily. Dolores, are you playing a game with Mateo to mess with me? I yanked my hand away, pressing my lips together without speaking, just feeling annoyed. Chris glared at me, his anger almost palpable. Say something. Mateo stepped in front of me protectively, speaking calmly. Do you know why she's in the hospital? Chris stiffened abruptly. Dissociative amnesia. She forgets traumatic events. Chris. She's forgotten you but remembers me. Chris's pupils constricted, and he looked at me, his eyes fixed. How could she forget me? I interrupted their conversation. Mateo, accompany me inside. My back hurts a bit, probably from yesterday's impact. Mateo nodded. Chris grabbed my arm. Dolores, I'm not marrying Flora, and I didn't throw away the things you left at home. I can help you with your treatment. Anyway, I have less work recently. I kept our daughter's music box, waiting for you to come back. Without looking back, I entered the room. Sorry, I don't remember you now. Let's talk about this when I do. I knew the man behind me hadn't left. I felt his gaze on me like a thorn in my back, long and unrelenting. Chapter 14. I still remember. I looked up at Mateo. Those words I said to Chris were just a pretense. I didn't want to get entangled with him anymore. Mateo gently ruffled my hair. I know. I was stunned for a moment, then recalled Chris's expression earlier. After knowing about my illness, he seemed quite anxious. When we first got married, I would look forward to him coming home every day, but he was always spending time with Flora. I often pretended to be sick to trick him into coming back. All I got was, Dolores, just hold on. If you die at home, I'll just have someone carry your body out. Later, even if I was really sick, I wouldn't get a single concerned look from him. Only Tina would grasp my hand with her little fingers, pressing her soft cheek against mine, gently calling me mommy. Tears streamed down as I thought of Tina. All I felt was endless heartache and pain. What mother can live peacefully in the world after losing her daughter? I can't, and I don't know how to. Chapter 15. My amnesia and depression have somewhat improved, but I often dream about the day my daughter left. She cried for help in the fire, desperately calling for her father, only to watch her body burn and melt in the flames while her father carried someone else's daughter to safety. Tina used to love watching cartoons. The educational stories in them always made her ask many questions. She once asked me, Mommy, if I get sick, will you protect me? Our Tina won't get sick, but if you do, Mommy will definitely protect and take care of you. What about Daddy? Daddy will surely protect you too, no matter when. In the end, the scenes in my dreams would change, transforming into Tina laughing and jumping into my arms. But as soon as I reached out, she would suddenly disappear. I would wake up with a start, gasping for breath, tears streaming down my face. Tina, will you blame Mommy? It's mommy's fault. I'm sorry, my dear. Chapter 16. Flora called me over a dozen times. I finally picked up. What's the matter? She sounded frantic and accusatory. Chris was in a car accident. I gripped the phone tightly. So what? What does that have to do with me? Do you want me to go see him? Flora took a deep breath. Dolores, I know you resent him for not being able to save your daughter, but now he's on the verge of death. If you have any conscience left, you should come back and see him. I didn't hit him. Even if I did, I wouldn't have that kind of conscience. But he went racing because he found out about your illness. He deliberately crashed into the mountainside, and he might not survive. There was a long silence on the phone. I could hear Flora's sobs on the other end. Dolores, I never should have fought with you. Chris never loved me. I frowned. Flora continued. Do you know why I could take advantage of the situation in college? Do you know why no matter how much you tried, you could never win Chris's love? Have you ever thought about your identity? Dolores, your mother once held the position of the company president. Did you know that? And the person who competed for the same position and died the same year was Chris's mother, Deborah. I tightened my grip on the phone. What do you mean? Are you saying my mother caused Chris's mother's death because of the job? Flora's voice was urgent. In any case, that's the reason Chris stayed by your side but always pushed you away. So, this was why Chris always thought I prioritized personal gain and would stop at nothing? He even believed our daughter was a tool I used to keep him. I suddenly found everything absurd. He's on the brink of death now. I hope you can come and see him. He's a victim too. He lost his mother when he was 14. Dolores, I abruptly interrupted. Flora, I never stopped Chris from revealing those secrets. Besides, I don't believe my mother would do something like that. Between Chris and me, it ended when my daughter left. If he ever loved me, then all of this was his own choice. No one forced him. Chapter 17. Later, Mateo brought me the music box. He also brought a letter from Chris. In the letter, he seemed like a different person. It was long, very long, as if he was afraid he would never have another chance to speak. I'm sorry, Dolores. The day of my car accident, Dad cried. He said I kept mentioning your name. After hesitating for a long time, he finally told me the truth about my mother's death. They were arguing. My mother wasn't paying attention, and she crashed the car, dying in the accident. I'm sorry, Dolly. I'm sorry. I could never come to terms with my mother's death, and I projected all those complicated emotions onto you. I love you. From the moment you approached me, from that moment on, my eyes were always on you, but I could never accept that I had fallen in love with you. So I kept tormenting you and myself. The day Tina left. I know this sounds like an excuse. I didn't see our daughter then. Flora's daughter was closer, and I saved her child. The reason I was always close to Flora was because my mother was once helped by her parents. Dolores, when I saw you sick and forgetting about me, an unprecedented fear and panic surrounded me. I couldn't accept you forgetting me. I'm sorry. I know that saying more is futile. This car accident is my way of atoning. I've lost my legs and will never be able to stand again. Would you turn back once more out of pity for me? I folded the letter and placed it in Mateo's hand. Throw the letter away. No need to reply. Between Chris and me, maybe there was love. But now, I don't want to dwell on those feelings anymore. My obsession is long in the past. Chris's remorse and atonement have nothing to do with me anymore. I just want to live well. For my Tina. To live well. Chapter 18. I saw Chris again 3 years later. By then, my dissociative amnesia and depression had mostly healed. I was walking with Mateo in Cologne Square. Mateo was pushing a wheelchair. When our eyes met, Chris froze, staring at me without blinking. I held onto Mateo's arm, looking down at Chris without any emotion. Chris's hands were on his knees, gripping them tightly, his gaze a mix of evasion and insecurity. Yet he still spoke. Long time no see. I nodded. Long time no see. How have you been? Pretty well. Chris's eyes flickered, filled with guilt and regret. Back then, that letter. Let's not talk about the past. Between us, it ended a long time ago. Tears fell from Chris's eyes, and I looked away without any emotion. Pigeons surrounded the fountain nearby. In that instant, white doves took flight, toward the bright blue sky, toward the sunset. Their fluttering tails reminded me of what my daughter once said. "Mommy, I want to be like a white dove too, flying high and far. So amazing! Mommy, you be the dove, Mommy. Let's fly far away together." Tina, Mommy is listening to you, flying toward freedom, toward the distance, higher and farther. In a certain moment, in an instant, at every choice I make, Tina seems to be by my side, always. In another way, by my side.